Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we've got a special treat for you. A follower of ours reached out and asked for our advice to do a Dynasty review. So we will look over their roster, let you know what we think they should do, and hopefully this helps you as you're thinking about your team.
Hike!
So let's talk about the settings here, Joe. This is a 10-team league. It's a PPR format. Starters, there's a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, which is a running back, receiver, or tight end flex, a kicker, and a team defense. There are 15 bench and 3 taxi squad. This team finished in last place. They were the worst team in this 10-team league. Let's go over their roster. As far as their roster goes, at quarterback, they've got Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and Trey Lance. At running back, they have Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, Zach Evans, Cam Akers, and Damian Harris. For wide receivers, they've got Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Jalen Waddle, Curtis Samuel, Jerry Jeudy, Tutu Atwell, Kadarius Toney, John Mechie, and Jamison Williams. At tight end, they've got David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, and Pat Freiermuth. At defense, they've got the Rams. And lastly, at kicker, they have Brandon Aubrey. And then since this is a Dynasty League, we got to look at those rookie draft picks, Joe. They have in 2024, they have the 101 because they finished in last, the 103 and the 108. The 201, the 208, the 301, the 401, and the 501. So they got a lot of good draft capital. In 2025, they have 3 firsts. So there's the owner who has the 103 and the owner who has the 108 from 2024, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And then in 2026, they have 2 firsts, and one of those other firsts is from the owner who finished at the 108, a second, a fourth, and a fifth. So, Joe, let's first start off. What's your advice for this team? Do you think they're a rebuilding team? Should they try to compete? Are they kind of in the middle? What do you think their strategy should be at this point?
Yeah, at the moment, I think he's kind of caught in the middle with kind of competing and rebuild. I mean, he's got a lot of young receivers on his team. That's honestly probably one of the stronger wide receiver and tight end is a couple of the strong points on his roster here. Definitely needs some help at the running back position. And then the quarterback, that's kind of why I feel like he's stuck kind of in between competing and rebuild because he's got a lot of older quarterbacks on his team. So, I mean, he's got a great opportunity at the 101 to get younger at the quarterback position potentially. But that's just kind of the overall landscape that I see.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a little bit in the middle. I think the reason why he didn't have as good of a year was due to Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins and Deshaun Watson all losing. Really left him with no quarterback to really work with. So as a result, it's hard for you to win at that point. He's got some young players that we could talk about that we like going forward. So let's review it by position here. We're going to go through team needs. So we're starting at quarterback. We talked about Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and Trey Lance. If you had to give it a grade, going with the report card, Joe, A through F here, what would you say as far as team needs go for quarterback?
I give his quarterback room a grade of probably, let's say a B+.
Wow, that's a lot higher than I'm going to go with.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, it's tough. I mean, he's got some good names. A lot of it will depend on how Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers kind of rebounds. I really don't like Deshaun Watson and, Trey Lance. I don't know what value can provide, but doesn't hurt to hold on to him just in case, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I think Trey Lance isn't going to really give you anything. Boy, I don't like this for him. I think that I would say it's kind of in a C+ territory, maybe B-. The reason why is because you've got it's a 10-team quarterback league, and it's only one quarterback. So quarterback position really isn't, I don't believe that's a position that you need to have a position of strength. So you probably could roll with these guys. But as far as your profile of team, Rodgers doesn't fit the bill. Kirk Cousins is probably the best guy of the group. And depending on where he goes, there's question marks. And Watson, I don't know if you could really get anything for him at this point, so I would kind of just ride with him. So I think that there's nobody really to build around here for the foreseeable future.
No.
If you're a competing roster, I would like it a lot better because I think Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers could do well in the short term. So that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks. How about for running backs, Joe? They've got Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, Zach Evans, Cam Akers, and Damian Harris. What do you give them for a grade here?
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, this is the toughest position group. I probably put it in I'll go with a D just because he's got Tony Pollard, even though I'm not the biggest Tony Pollard fan. But yeah, there's definitely some work to do. And I think that's, as we talk about trades in the future, I think that's definitely a position that needs to be addressed.
I don't know who you are, so please don't take offense to what I'm about to say. I give you an F. I don't know what, and I just don't know what you could build around. I personally do not like Tony Pollard. He's going to be a free agent this year. I don't even think it's a sure thing that he's going to go back to Dallas. So Zeke Elliott, I think he could be done. Kareem Hunt could be done. Elijah Mitchell, handcuff, I guess. Zach Evans had promise, but Kyron Williams took the show. Akers, I think, is done. Damian Harris is done. So, I mean, you probably know this already, but your running back room's a wasteland. You have really nothing to build. We'll talk about building blocks. I want to get ahead of myself, but you're concerned about this group. I'm sure I'm concerned about the group.
Yeah, I'm sure he knows, and you really just drove it home for him.
I know. I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest. Though, I gotta be straight. Yeah, gotta be straight. So, all right. How about the wide receiver group? In review here, we got Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Jalen Waddle, Curtis Samuel, Jerry Jeudy, Tutu Atwell, Kadarius Toney, John Mechie, and Jamison Williams. What grade would you give these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a decent room that he's got. It's the best position group he's got on the team, in all honesty. So, probably go with a B on this. I like, he's got a lot of good young talent with Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Jalen Waddle is interesting, and Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Williams, another guy I like. So yeah, I'd say a B.
I think B is a good fit. I think I'm going to go with a B as well. I think you're right. I mean, I'm not the biggest Zay Flowers. I like Zay Flowers as the person and as the player.
You don't like him with the Ravens, though. I know that.
I know. Rashee Rice, though, and Jalen Waddle, those are some good players. So you got something to build around there. We're going to talk about building blocks in a little bit, but I think that makes sense. How about your tight end room? We got David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, and Pat Freiermuth.
I'll go with a B plus here. I mean, I think I like Njoku, and then Likely, not sure exactly what he'll be this year with if Mark Andrews is healthy. Obviously, if he goes down, we saw what Likely couldn't do in this offense. And Pat Freiermuth, it'll be interesting to see if he starts getting more utilized in this Arthur Smith type offense and what they do at the quarterback position, because that could really help him advance. So
I'm going to agree with you again. I think B plus. I consider it A minus. It's not a tight end premium league. There's 10 teams, so again, not a position of strength that you really need. I feel like you got really good depth in this position. I think this is your strongest group, of the different position groups here. So I like it. I think Likely is a good guy to have as a potential moving forward. Njoku, I think, really took some steps forward, and if him and Watson end up being anything, that's a nice stack you got there. And Freiermuth is a good solid, fringe tight end 1, tight end 2. So I like that a lot. Let's talk about defense and kicker combined here. You got Rams defense and then Brandon Aubrey. What do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer it if he played in an IDP league instead of this team defense, but the Rams defense was serviceable. Obviously, Brandon Aubrey was one of the better kickers. So I mean, you got to like that. I mean, he got a nice young bright future at the kicker position, and I mean, it's a 10-team league. I'm sure if he wanted to move on and change defenses, he could easily.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's not one. I don't think we're going to talk much about this group here, or groups. But I'm with you. I mean, you got to be happy about Aubrey. He was a rookie last year. probably your best kicker in the league, so you can ride with him going forward. And like you said, Rams, I'm not that enthusiastic about, especially Aaron Donald will probably be, I don't know how much longer he'll be playing. So you probably want to swap them out, but I'm sure defense is not, unless your scoring is something else, it's probably not going to tip the scale. So I wouldn't really be too concerned about it. So, Joe, who do you think is this team's building blocks? Who are these guys you're like, I'm really not trying to trade these guys. These are guys I want to keep. And then we'll start there, and then I'm curious of who you think you would try to trade.
And I think really the building blocks potentially could be, I think definitely Zay Flowers and Rashee Rice from wide receiver perspective. And then I'd probably say David Njoku at tight end. But outside of that, I think most of these pieces are definitely movable and got to try to do something to address that running back position.
I agree with you. I think I probably would just stick it to Rashee Rice and David Njoku. I think all these guys are available, but we haven't talked about rookie draft picks. We will talk about that. I think you've got some really good picks that I think could be very influential for your team and can really help turn things around. So as far as trade targets go, who are the guys that you'd be looking to say, let me try to trade them off my roster, and what do you think I could get for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably try to trade Jalen Waddle, and definitely Jerry Jeudy. I think you could try to also trade Tony Pollard, and I'd probably try to get something for some of these older quarterbacks because I just don't think this roster is ready to compete now, and Cousins and Rodgers at their age just doesn't quite fit this roster landscape. So I would definitely try to trade Rodgers. Depending on where Kirk Cousins goes, I see, the Vikings already said they're not going to give him another fully guaranteed contract. So I don't know if Kirk Cousins will be back in Minnesota. So depending on where he goes, you could try to keep him or try to trade him as well.
Do you think you could get a second for Kirk?
I think it's possible.
Would you do that if you were him? Would you do that?
I think I would, especially with his draft capital. And like you said, it's a 10-team league, PPR. The quarterback value, it isn't that high. So it's not like you need all these high caliber quarterbacks. And if you increase your other skill positions, and increase that, then it really won't matter who you have at quarterback.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the Waddle play. I think he's the number one guy I try to trade. He's your biggest name, and I'm not sure I'm the biggest believer in him moving forward. This might be rich. I could see myself going Jalen Waddle and the 108. See if you can't get the 102. Maybe you get a little bit more. I think you could probably get more. I don't think you have to just do 108 and Jalen Waddle. But then you get 101, 102, and 103. And I think it'd be worthwhile for you to have all three of those. I think that could be super beneficial. So I would consider that greatly.
Yeah, I would just say don't be afraid to trade these wide receivers. You've got 3 first-round picks. This is a wide receiver heavy class. You can easily replace those. If guys are willing to give you decent value for these wide receivers that you do have, I mean, you have good wide receivers, but you can easily replace them with these draft picks, and then you'll have those young guys as well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting as far as a 10-team league. I don't know where Brock Bowers go. You don't really need a tight end, but at that 108, possibly if you were to keep
the interesting thought about getting the 102. It's the tough part is he really needs running backs, and this is
I know, and this is not a running back class. I know
he's rich at wide receivers, and it's a heavy wide receiver class. So I don't. That's why I think I would try to move these wide receivers to upgrade their running back room.
So who would you, from a running back standpoint, would there be a guy that you would say that you would try to target if you were him?
I think if you could get somebody, if you could get a Kyren Williams, I know you have your doubts about Kyren Williams. I personally still like him. I think somebody like Kyren Williams or, somebody like a Devon Achane, even James Cook, maybe target a younger guy like Kenneth Walker too, or Tajay Spears. Any kind of younger running back like that you might be able to attain.
Yeah, I think if I were them,
but Kyron Williams would probably be my number one guy.
Okay, if I were them, I don't think it'd be very hard. I don't know if you could do it. Age is gonna be a huge factor for running backs. We know that. If you could pry away Gibbs, I don't think you could do it. But if you could, maybe you give Pollard and maybe Jamison Williams and possibly you got 3 firsts in 2025. Give a first in 2025 on top of it and maybe a second. I think you could maybe try to pry him away. And again, based on this team, the running backs are very depleted. There could be a team that has multiple running backs on their roster that they'd be willing to trade away. But, I'm thinking, it's hard because you're Gibbs, Breece, Bijan. That's like the new, kind of elite 3 right now. So, do you really take a flyer on Achane? You've got James Cook, Kenneth Walker you mentioned as well. I don't know. That would be it's a tough one because from an age standpoint, maybe one possible thing you could do, and I don't necessarily love it. You do have a lot of draft picks, and in the second round, and this isn't a deep running back class. Maybe you take some flyers on guys like Blake Corum. Maybe you take some flyers on, Braylon Allen or Will Shipley or Trey Benson, and hope that one of these guys turns into something. Because it only takes one injury for someone to step right in.
Yeah, that could make a lot of sense. Especially depending on where these guys go. If Blake Corum goes somewhere that guy. I mean, heck, if he were to go back with Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers, and he's going to run the ball a lot, that would make a lot of sense.
So going over to the draft picks, who are some guys that you would say, hey, you really would want to target here?
Yeah, obviously, I stick with the wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. You mentioned Brock Bowers. Tough thing is, I don't know where quarterbacks, most of the time, like Dynasty leagues, you're thinking with a couple of those top ones, you're thinking quarterback, but I don't know how quarterbacks are valued in this league just because it's a 10-teamer.
Yeah.
And it's not a super flex league. So no. I don't know if it makes sense to waste, your upper echelon picks for a quarterback when the value would be, go ahead. It's a PPR league. Go and get yourself the receivers, even though that's where you're stacked at.
Yeah, honestly, you're 101 and you're 103. You're probably going to miss out on Neighbors because if you go Marvin Harrison at 101, because he would be the 101, your 103 then becomes Rome Odunze, which to me is that's not a bad consolation prize. If you could get, and that's where, I wouldn't. If I were you, I would not trade the 101. I think Marvin Harrison is a blue chip prospect. He would immediately be the best building block for your roster if you were able to keep the pick and take it. Depending on what you're offered, I guess maybe I would consider, but the problem is I just don't really know based on your team how that would be beneficial. Unless you get somebody like, who's still got tread in the tires, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb. Again, I wouldn't really target a tight end. You're pretty good in that space. And that running back, yeah, you could get Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs and give your 101. But at that point, it's like Marvin Harrison's shelf life is going to be way longer than these running backs.
That's the tough thing. That's why, like, early in Dynasty drafts, I always say the wide receivers are the better investment because they just simply play longer. Running backs is always a position that we need in Dynasty, but it's tough because they play the least amount of time. It's just one of those things. Unless you have, some of the outliers that are playing longer, like a Derrick Henry, and even McCaffrey's playing later here pretty well as so.
So that does it. Hopefully, this roster review was helpful for that person who reached out to us, and for anyone else who's watching or listening. We enjoy these, so if you want to reach out to us, our direct messages are open on X. Go ahead and follow us on Front Office Pros, and we'll be happy to go through your roster. If you're new to the channel, we do 3 episodes a week, so you're not going to want to miss that. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.